The Tuesday, August 1st, 2017 public board meeting of the Greater Dayton RTA Board of Trustees is hereby called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The vision of RTA is to be a premier public transportation provider that connects people and communities. Our mission is to provide great value, dependable service, and to be responsive, timely, and accountable for all that we do. Our motto, it's time to ride. And while I'm standing here and I have everyone's attention, I would like to congratulate one of our board members for receiving the 2017 Cardinal Bernardin Community Service Award.
Woo! Yay! I'm using it. Thank you. I've got one for my file. Thank you. Gee, thank you. Huh.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hurd.
Here.
Ms. Hairston.
Here.
Mr. Corrado.
Here.
Mr. Hoagie.
Here.
Ms. Howard.
Present.
Mr. Lumpkin.
Here.
Mr. Weckeser.
Here.
Mr. Williamson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. We can conduct business. The first item is the approval of the consent agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes or corrections, additions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Been properly moved and second that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. The agenda has been approved as presented. The next item on the agenda are the minutes of the June 20th, 2017 board meeting. The minutes of this meeting were presented for review to all board members prior to today's meeting. Unless there is any board member who requests a reading of the minutes, I will ask if there are any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented. Okay. Having heard no request for a reading of the minutes, nor any corrections or additions, the minutes stand approved as presented. Next item on the agenda is the recognition of Ms. Allison Ledford and Mr. James Napier. Mark?
Thank you, Madam President. Today is a great day to be in Dayton. It's a great day for RTA. We started the day off over at Sinclair, launching our first semester pass, which is going to be great fun. So that's good. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be a part of the event today to recognize two people I consider close personal friends and long-term associates. So first, let's talk a little bit about Allison. A long, long time ago in a far, far away place, that being Zanesville, Ohio. And it wasn't that long ago. It was in the year 2003. In my former life, I had responsibility for some transit systems in a number of states, and one is Southeast Area Transit, which is Muskingum and Guernsey County in eastern Ohio. And people who knew me in my former life said there was one bright spot in Zanesville, Ohio, and I decided to drag her out of there, and that was Allison Ledford. Allison had worked there on the transit system, I believe, first as a dispatcher, but then when I first arrived on the scene, I believe she was the risk manager. But that wasn't all she did. I had the unfortunate luck of having to do a brief stint as the manager there when we were in between managers and was looking for help. So I didn't know these people very well. And one day this young lady came to me and said she had some ideas and had been working on some things. And before I knew it, I had a brand new policy and procedure manual that was absolutely professionally done and pretty cool. Weird that she's working on one of those as we speak for this organization. So I was so impressed with Allison, I decided to see if we could drag her away from Eastern Ohio, which we did. She then served the Transit Authority of Northern Kentucky, another one of my favorite transit systems, for a number of years, responsible for a variety of things, including administration and human resources there. So on and about, it had to have been about 2008, 7? Was it that early? Wow. It's in 2007. We had a need here for someone to manage our what we then called Project Mobility, and we now call Connect service. Back when it was located over in the Coca-Cola building, it was kind of a standalone business unit. Allison competed against a number of people, some internal as well as external, and won that job. And since then has been involved in a variety of things. One of my personal favorites was an effort that the other fellow we're going to talk about worked with Allison on, and that was the unification of what I would at one time referred to as the cats and the dogs. There were people that never believed we could unify the project mobility and traditional operator work groups into one function. That was done a number of years back. I don't know if there are any board members still here that were here when we finished that project. But there was a lot to be done involved with that. Allison was a key component of that. Obviously, she did a stint, as you know, as director of the operations department, but most recently in HR, working on the restructuring of our HR function. A lot of the public is not aware. I know the board is aware that Allison was selected by both the Dayton Business Journal and Mass Transit Magazine for their 40 under 40 competitions a few years back. And those, were, I think, great accolades for someone who has given so much. So anybody that knows Allison, I think, knows as well as I do that when you think about her, you think about a number of things, and the first being her drive. I don't know that I've ever met anybody more motivated to come to work than Allison Ledford. And I know a number of people here, including myself, sometimes would wonder how she would deal with having to deal with employees who didn't seem so interested in coming to work. And yet didn't face the challenges in life that she does. So she's a committed person. I think most people know that. But I think maybe more than anything for some of the folks here that are out there driving buses today or who have had the experience of working directly with her, probably the biggest memory would be that her approach, very empathetic. She understood people and their needs and was willing to listen to people, especially people having a tough time, and help them in any way she could. So arguably, her career here is being cut a little short. We know it's not something that she's happy about at all, but we think there are great things still to come from Allison Ledford, and we know that she'll stay a part of the RTA family going forward. So with that, if we could get Allison to come up, we'd like to present you with a couple things. So thank you. I don't know what else to tell you. You've been a great part of what we do. What you've done here is going to live on for years and years to come. And as I said, you're still going to be a member of the family, no matter what you're doing in the coming months and years. So please take these. We think they'll be appropriate, especially that one. And we'll find out later. And again, we thank you so much. Would you like to say a few words to the folks here? We would like to.
Sure. I had something prepared, but I left it over there.
And the mic.
I'll get it first.
My first rodeo, Bob.
So most of you who know me know that I'm not really a huge public speaker, so I kind of going off the cuff a little bit today, but I did bring something in the event that Mark did ask me to speak. A couple months ago, well, yes, it's been a couple months ago now that I've had to make this challenging decision in my life to kind of stepped down as being a leader here at the RTA and really take care of my own health and my own personal needs. Actually, one of our fellow employees who can't be here today because he's facing his own challenges in life right now, Mr. Gene Rhodes, sent me an email that, really was very touching to me, and it's a story. I'm not going to read all of it because it's a pretty long story, but I'll give you a little bit of a background on it, and then read the part that I think is fitting to my life right now, and hopefully moving forward. So this lady in this story, her and her husband were pretty adventurous people, and one of his goals in life was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And they both attempted to do that. And unfortunately, during that process, this lady's husband passed away in the process of climbing the mountain, which unfortunately, what I understand, does happen quite a bit. And then after he passed away, she had thought she was going to make it her life goal to really fulfill his want and desire to climb that mountain. She was going to do it herself. And during that first year after he passed away, she got to meet a lady who was going through a similar situation that she had gone through. And they had thought that maybe they were going to do this climb together. And then at one point, it became closer and closer to that time that she was going to do that climb. And she really thought about it and ultimately made the decision not to do it because it wasn't her life. And it wasn't what she wanted out of life, but it was what he wanted out of life. And she felt like she wasn't maybe honoring herself through him. So ultimately she did make that decision, but I wanted to read this part of the story to you because I think it was very meaningful to me. So if you just bear with me for a minute here. So again, she's made this decision, and she says, "So I simply said to myself, I'm not climbing the mountain right now." She was saying right now being those two operative words. And those two words right now can make such a difference in our lives. They keep opportunity alive, but allow us to surrender to the hows and whens, so we let things unfold with the grace that only our hearts can dictate. Maybe I will see the top of the mountain one day, maybe I won't. But if and when I do, I know it will be a decision from my heart, not for any other reason. I recognize the impact submitting to the mountain would make, the people it would inspire, the major motion picture it could create, the feeling of accomplishment. But making the conscious decision not to decide right now is actually the only decision that feels right. So that is my decision. Because intuitively, that is what is right now. As I've watched myself walk through the past year and a half, I can see the cycles that started and then restarted again. When my husband first passed away, the only way I knew how to love him was through the pain I felt of him being gone. It was my body's natural reaction to loss. Then I watched myself learn to love him by living almost solely out of love and honor for him, taking over his business, living the way he would live life. But then pain began to reappear because I was expressing my full potential by living out his dream. I wasn't expressing my full potential by living out his dream. And even though I was doing so out of an act of love, what I was beginning to see was that I wasn't expressing the purest form of love, which is not just to give it, but to actually live it. To do what matters to you, because when you own your own truth and you fully embrace and express what you love, you can't help but effortlessly share that love with others. I'm very much still a work in progress, but I'm learning to transition out of living out his life and our dreams to now living out my dreams. While it comes with its own natural challenges, feeling selfish and being forced to beat myself head on, owning up to the responsibility to live my best life even though it impacts other people's plans and how I fit into their lives. But I truly believe that the deepest way to love all those around me is to be my best self. Because when I'm that person, I simply cannot help but to share that love with everyone I come in contact with, those within my inner circle and beyond. So in a way, choosing not to reclimb Kilimanjaro right now actually feels like a deeper, more pure act of love, because that statement says, because I love you, I choose to shine the light that is me. Because I love you, I'm going to let go of what should have been or what could have been so that I can fully embrace what is.
Just like Mr. Rhodes, send something like that. Okay. Mr. Napier. And I'm not the only, I know that Frank would like to say a few words today too. That felt like a payback tone, something like that. Well, the first thing I wanted to do was give this gift to Chris, Jim's wife. This is Jim Napier's hire photo for his first RTA badge on the old Polaroid film. He was a good-looking young man, you know, back in the day. So I decided I would do a little investigation, because I've known Jim for 12, 13 years now, but not as long as some folks. So I went and dug through the archives, found that picture, which I loved. I immediately ripped it out of the file. And then I started looking back at Jim's application for employment at the RTA. And I knew he had worked at CODA, you know, one of our farm teams in Ohio, for good talent. I'm not going to say which one is AA, AAA, you know, but
I think that's where Chris Cole came.
but I noticed that before that, Jim was an office manager. In 1983, Jim was an office manager for the Minority Supplier Development Council. Deborah Howard, did you know this? How did you let him get into the wrong side of the business? He could have been on the, yeah, it shows it right there, but not for long, because in '84 you became a transportation clerk, and I love this title, complaints assistant at the Central Ohio Transit Authority. And then for the next 30-some years, you addressed complaints, right? I mean, it's like it never ended. You got paid a little better. Now, when you first came to RTA, which I see was March the 13th, 1989, you had the dubious title of Customer Service Representative. And I'm going to just make this public record right now. For the whopping salary of $21,900. That was annually, folks. That
Was he overpaid?
Yeah. Pretty incredible stuff. Just unbelievable. So I also found in there that one of the people that interviewed you was my close personal friend, Vicki Jambrone. And Vicki gave you, as opposed to me, a very positive review. You know, she was very impressed with you and said you could go to work right now and be very productive for RTA. So it happened. You came on board at RTA, and you almost had too many titles. There were so many titles over the years that I only took a sampling of them. And at one point you were superintendent. Obviously you were the transportation director at the time, you know, of the division when we had the two separate entities over there. And then obviously we went through, as I talked about earlier, this unification process. And that was around the time when we also had, and we're going back to 2006, 7, and 8, when we had done a number of things, and one of which was identified a real problem here at RTA, and that we had literally sacrificed the safety program here as a budget cut in the early 2000s. So when we first cut our deal with then Brower to change how we deal with our liability coverage, there was a substantial savings. In the first year, we were going to save about $600,000. And I went to the then board and I said, I want to spend some of that savings and invest it back to rebuild a safety program. And they immediately bought in. That makes all the sense in the world. So then I had to figure out how we were going to do this. And my answer was to ask Jim to get out of his comfort zone. and to move over to do something there, and we piled on. We threw in security, we threw in the hubs and things like that, and that was a huge, huge part of what he did. And as you know, he's finished his career here as the Chief Operations Officer. You know, some of the things I think that are most important to remember about Jim's tenure here was the unification. Of course, that was a big thing, and even the old union president said to me, "Oh, this is never going to work. We can never have those PMOB operators and the big bus operators in the same lounge." And I'm like, "Oh my God, the sky might fall." But it went off without a hitch. During his time in safety and security, the creation of the ambassador program was Jim Napier. He had some support from his good friend, Ms. Brookshire. They created the program that's been recognized around the country for taking more of a customer service approach as opposed to a direct uniform security approach to what we do. Jim implemented Smith's system on this organization, and that meant about 500 people had to have Smith's system in less than a year, and then set up the follow-ups and all of that. And why was it important? Because obviously when we started self-funding our liability coverage on the auto side, I know Mr. Williamson knows a great deal about that from his past, the importance of that. And we started seeing results immediately in terms of our accident numbers. He also got involved in the worker injury side of it, and he's also Mr. Yak Tracks, and everybody here has Yak Tracks, and these are things you can put on over your shoes if there's an icy condition and not fall and hurt yourself. I don't think the Yak Tracks were probably the biggest thing, but when we did the conversion away from the minivan fleet, Jim actually honchoed that change. In a year's time, we reduced injuries by bus operators by 39% in a 12-month period. In fact, a few years later, I was very concerned because that was falling off the charts, and we had board members saying, "Hey, how come you're not showing big improvements?" And I'm thinking, well, it used to be way up here. It's way down here now. But that was a huge thing. So you start combining things like those reductions on the injury side, and certainly what we gained. I know the board is aware that today, after about 10 years of moving our auto liability situation away, we have saved literally millions of dollars over the time period, probably in excess of $5 million to the bottom line, which has been fantastic. Another one of my favorites, the top operator program, was Jim's baby, and that ran into some headbutts on the union side because he said we wanted the exclusive right to decide who, and they would be, you had to come to work, you had to have a great safety record, you had to have all these qualifications. No customer complaints, I think, was another one. So the idea was the best of the best would do the training for us. And again, all these things I think tied together to help us there. A lot of folks are not aware. You are aware we're involved in the American Bus Benchmarking Group. And you know, obviously one of the intentions of that group is that we all help each other. And one year I was sitting at an APTA meeting, and my good friend Donna DiMartino, my counterpart from Stockton, California, said, "You know, we are horrible at safety. You guys look like rock stars. I want to borrow some of your talent." And I said, 2 conditions. I said, you pay his expenses and you don't offer him a job. I think she only met one of the conditions. Because we did get the expenses paid. But, so anyway, Jim made a few visits out there to help Stockton. And I was so proud, a few years ago, we had the annual meeting of the benchmarking group in Stockton, and they had built a brand new operations facility, beautiful state-of-the-art place. I saw no less than 3 items, and every time I did, I elbowed Donna. I said, "Jim Napier?" She said, "Yep." And it was really neat to see how they had embraced, you know, the help that Jim gave them, so I know that they won't forget that. But you know, for me personally, the thing I've always liked most about Jim is he never forgot where he came from. Still describes himself as an old North Dayton kid, and he hasn't forgotten that. And I think it's probably been the same way in his career. A couple years ago, when I think we had some middle management issues, he gave them all clipboards. I think some of them didn't know what a clipboard was, and the idea that you can't trust the electronics all the time. You got to get out and audit these machines. And it doesn't hurt to be seen anyway out on the street like we used to do things in the old days. But I think every bit of that, from, I would say, clipboards to FaceTime, you know, that's the legacy Jim leaves here. And I'd say for a kid from Old North Dayton, you've done your community proud. You've had a long and very successful career here, and your mark is going to be left here for decades to come. And now that I've said a lot of nice things, I'm going to invite Frank up to get his payback, if that's okay with the board.
I didn't pack a lunch, so it'll be okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great seeing everyone. Sharon, congratulations on the award. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Allison, your words were moving, and if it didn't touch anybody in this room, I don't know what's wrong with you. But anyway, I live down the road from you, too. You have my number. Let's have lunch. So, I'm Frank Eckler, former Director of Marketing here and Planning at RTA, and I met Jim in 1984 at CODA, Columbus. He was in customer service, and I was in planning, and we became instant friends. We really did. And we experienced quite a lot when we lived in Columbus. We worked on a variety of projects, transportation services for Red, White, and Boom, which was crazy. Buckeye football shuttles. We endured a 62 labor strike, 62 days labor strike. I remember the day we distributed, or those days we distributed flyers to ask the community to support us in a sales tax, which did not pass. It felt like we distributed 1 million flyers, but you know, we worked hard. We played hard. We were in our 20s. We thought we were invincible, and we were these brash kids. A lot of travel, playing, you know, softball, fishing in Tennessee and Canada, and we formed many friendships, many that exist today. Jim has been called many names. Jim, Nape, Jimmy Jam, Napes, you name it. But I didn't know this, but, and some of you may not know this, his name is James Jeffrey Napier, right? Okay, James Jeffrey Napier. Jim and I shared an apartment in Columbus for a couple of years, and I would constantly get phone calls. Is Jeff there? Is Jeff there? Oh, and I'm like, no, Jeff lives here. Hung up, and it got to the point where it was ridiculous. Well, one day, years after I met Jim, we were playing golf with his father, Gary, and his dad said, nice putt, Jeff. And I'm like, Jeff? Who the heck is Jeff? And he said, well, that's what I used to be called when I grew up in Dayton. And I said, dude, you've missed 3 years of phone calls. I am so sorry. So, anyway, but really the hard work really took off when Jim and I arrived here in Dayton. And Mark mentioned so many of his job titles. Mainly the main title is just duties as assigned. And why is it in job descriptions that duties as assigned is like the smallest font that you'll ever see, but that's what it is. He covered many, many areas. He drove a golf cart while working at 3rd and Main for about a year as a customer service representative. That just shows you he was in it for everyone to work with them. Just a few highlights, and I promise, I wish I asked you to turn the traffic light on, Marion, because I know I'd beat it. Anyway, 2003, do y'all remember Inventing Flight 100 years celebration? It was a 17-day celebration. Jim developed a lot of the service planning, oversaw that program. It was a 4-day air show, 4 days. We probably lost 10 pounds each just working park and rides, chasing anything and everything to make sure the job got done. Jim's involvement with Opta, and I don't know, Mark, if you touched this, he was involved in the Safety and Security Committee. He's well respected in the industry. Jim definitely has left a mark. And just to echo Mark's comments, Jeff, grew up behind Sup Millers. And you all remember Sup Millers, and then he worked his way up into the Five Oaks neighborhood. So, but anyway, you all remember the Sup Millers location. You know, there were some tough streets. And Jim never used the excuse that he could not succeed in life because he was dealt a pretty modest hand. He grinded it out, worked his butt off, and received his bachelor's degree and put himself in a position to always be ready. And I know you'll agree with that, always ready. And he left an indelible mark. I am convinced he'll continue to leave important legacies and contributions in whatever you do in the future. But take it from me, Jim, retirement is not an end. It's truly a beginning. So enjoy it. Best of luck in the future. But in the meantime, I'll see you this Thursday morning, bright and early, because we're heading south to do some serious fishing. So congratulations.
I have several aliases. Several aliases.
Our sincerest thanks. There's a little something in here that might help you vote.
Thanks, Mark.
And all of that, we can't say enough. But, it's your turn.
Well, I'm just trying to keep this really to a couple minutes, seriously. Just a couple of minutes, but wow, how time flies. 28 and a half years. I was looking at that picture, it looks like I just, man, it's kind of surreal today, I gotta tell you the truth. But first and foremost, I want to thank the board, Mark, for inviting me back today for this board meeting. It's very important to me. And everything I've tried to do for this organization, always haven't been successful, but we always tried. And I think that was one of my downsides. I didn't know how to say no enough because I think we can do stuff. I'm going to tell you something real quick. One thing Mark did not mention on that application. My wife's here. She doesn't hurt. I also have a 9th grade education. Okay, I have a 9th grade education. I was lucky enough to meet people that said, try this, try this community college, and I did that. Try this, and I did that. And I was receptive to suggestions and ideas. As Frank said later on, got my bachelor's degree. But yeah, 3 years at Colonel White, Mr. Lumpkin, I had enough. I was ready to move on, and I did. But I took one of my neighborhood friends, David Matheny. We lived right behind each other. We either cut grass, shoveled snow since we were 11 years old. I was always labeled, otherwise categorized as a youth at risk, and I worked the OWA programs. Matter of fact, at E.J. Brown, I controlled the entire supply of chocolate milk. I worked in the lunchroom. And I wrote that out. When I got into high school, I worked at OWE, I worked in the lunchrooms, and then I worked on the cancer floor out at Good Samaritan Hospital on the weekends. So I've pretty much worked all my life. And today's just a very proud moment. I want to thank the senior staff. What a great group of professionals. I mean, man, these people know what they're talking about, and it really shows in the results. So I did want to throw a rose at Mr. Cole. I just, I bought a bass boat, and I keep telling Chris I'm going to come up to Allen Creek, and I was thinking on the way over here, dude, we could probably find some designer fishing apparel for you. Go fishing, man. Sure, Tommy Bahama makes fishing gear. So I got you. Allison Ledford, probably one of my dearest friends ever, the sister I never had. We connected on day one that she started here. Mark Donaghy told me, if you just look past her disability and see the person. And that's what I've done, man. I've grabbed a hold of that person and really integrated a lot of my life with hers. And we're dear, otherwise close friends. Matter of fact, when I was working for years, first thing my wife would ask me when I got home, not how I'm doing, how was Allison today? We get together for family functions. Her family asks, how is Allison? And she's just a true inspiration to all of us, a dear friend of mine. And I can't say enough about that relationship. And my dear friend Gene Rhodes, I keep him in your prayers today. He's a guy that, he's for the right thing. And that's what I associate with, the right things. And, I was telling you how time flies. I grew up in this organization. And today I like the person that I've grown up to be. I like who I am. And retirement has already, is already setting well with me. I was telling someone I'm already OCD, so all my wife has to say is, those windows outside look dirty. I'm not washing them the next day. I take hits. I want to thank my wife because I'll be honest with you, in this 24/7 business, and anybody, Bronze and I have talked that's in executive level leadership positions, the pull on our time is just tremendous. People see the 8 to 5 while they're at work, but they don't see the phone calls in the middle of the night, 5 a.m., the situations at midnight. While you're on vacation, we were talking about that, Franz. And so the real heroes to me, and I think my wife, are the people behind the scenes that allow us to go out here and do these things. I mean, it's not everybody's cut out for this stuff, so I really appreciate that. And then my team out here, you know, hey, we made a good run. I think we did the best we could, and that's all I've ever asked from people. You know, and they can attest. I'm a people person more than a data person. And I want to know what's going on with people and how I can help them do the things they don't think they can do. That was my job as a leader, to make you think you can do more than you thought you could. And that's how you achieve great things. I think we did that. Beyond that, really the biggest thanks is to our customers, to the taxpayers that supported this organization. You know, in my office, Mark was joking around. We were moving on up. We moved up to the Five Oaks area. Now they call it the Santa Clara District or something. That's lipstick on a pig, by the way. But I still had in my office the Route 12 Five Oaks bus stop, where I used to catch the bus at Wheatley Avenue with Victor Avenue in Dayton. And I had my name below that, so that the first thing I walk in, I remind myself, man, this at-you risk, this dropout, this kid that could have been any number of things is just, man, it's a special feeling. And that's where I really connect, is with the customers. You know, we grew up riding the bus. And so I just want to say thanks to everybody. This has been an amazing ride. It's been a journey. And I'm with Frank. I don't know what the big guy has in store for me, but I'm going to do a better job listening. And I'm excited about where he's going to take me. My next job, my career objective is going to be to have a positive effect on as many employees and customers as I can, not to progress in a position of meaningful root. I'm not looking for that anymore. And actually, Mark knows the last 5 or 6 years I haven't. That's not what I've worked for. I've worked for the people on those bus stops. I've worked for the people behind the wheel of our buses, turning wrenches, the teams that actually breathe life into these buildings. So with that, I've said too much. Thank you, and I really appreciate this.
A reminder that we hope people can stay. We have to buy a few things today, but after the board meeting, we're going to have a little reception 1 floor down here. People can hang around. Yeah.
Okay. But next, we have our committee reports. Mr. Lumpkin, we'll start with the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance and Personnel, not personal, sweet Jesus, I don't have this type of money. Personnel and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on July 18th. As a result, the committee is recommending 3 action items for the board's consideration. Action item number 2, Gillick Bus Disc Brake Kits. The purpose of this procurement is to ensure parts availability to standardize the brake rebuilds for the recently purchased Gillick 1600 and 1700 bus series, or series buses. These brake parts are for the disc brake systems and are a new feature for the 1600 and 1700 fleets, as well as future fleets. This procurement promotes 3 RTA core values: safety, quality, service, and stewardship. Mr. Darren Brown provided a detailed explanation at our committee meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Mr. Brown is available to answer any questions that the board may have at this time. Hearing none, based upon the recommendations of the committee, I move to award a contract to Gillig LLC in the grand total amount of $188,681. This procurement will be funded with operating funds.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we award a contract to Gillig for $188,681 for disc brake kits. Are there any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. We will award a contract to Gillig Bus for disc brake kits.
Action item number 3, American Public Transportation Association, APTA annual dues. Greater Dayton RTA sustains a membership with APTA to utilize services provided such as networking, professional development, and business opportunities, workshops, and seminars. Access to online resources is also available. One of the long-term benefits of APTA membership is the opportunity to shape long-term industry policy and legislation on transportation issues. Ms. Stanforth provided a detailed explanation at our committee meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Mary is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing none, based upon the recommendations of the committee, I move to approve the American Public Transportation Association's 2017-2018 dues in the amount of $38,691. This is the same amount as last year.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that we continue to pay the APTA dues in the amount of $38,691 for the 2017-18 year. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carried. We will be renewing our annual membership with APTA.
Action item number 4, banking services. The Greater Dayton RTA contracts with a commercial bank to perform ongoing banking services. The successful, prosper, and responsible for providing all the banking and treasury management services which RTA requires. The bank is also required to sell bus passes and tokens from its central office and larger branches located within the RTA service area. Ms. Stanforth provided a detailed explanation at our committee meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Ms. Stanforth is available for any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing none, based upon the recommendation of the committee, I move to award a contract to Fifth Third Bank for a 5-year term with 2 one-year options. This procurement will be funded with operating funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Been properly moved and seconded that we contract with Fifth Third Bank to provide our banking services. Are there any questions or comments? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I will be abstaining from this vote as I am an employee of a financial institution.
So noted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam President, I also have to abstain because I have a conflict.
Okay. We still have a majority, so we're okay. So the motion is carried with 2 abstentions noted. Okay. Thank you. You have a report.
Some additional items, the April 2017 sales tax update. At the meeting, Mr. Robert Thomas reported that the 2017 receipts are $33,000 higher than April 2016. That equates to roughly a 1% or 0.9% increase. Year-to-date, April 2017 receipts are $350,000 lower than year-to-date April 2016. This equates to a 2.6% decrease. After 4 months of receipts, we are $950,000 below the amount budgeted for sales tax revenue. The June 2017 financial statements, Mr. Thomas reported for the June 2017, RTA's actual net loss after local depreciation is $461,000 compared to a budgeted loss of $49,000. This is primarily the result of lower sales tax proceeds. There were positive variances in almost all expenses categories, which offset some of the negative sales tax results. June 2017 year-to-date actual net loss after depreciation is $936,000 compared to a year-to-date budgeted loss of $1.6 million. After 6 months of financial results, we are seeing decreases in revenue categories including sales tax, federal assistance, and operating revenue. Positive variances have been realized in expense categories including wages and benefits and materials and supplies including fuel. There's still work to be done in balancing the RTA's financial results by year's end. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Planning Committee, Ms. Howard.
Thank you. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on July 18th, and we have one action item for the board's consideration. Action item number 5, Remix Transit Planning Software Service. The purpose of this procurement is to award a sole source contract to Remix Software, Inc. to provide cloud-based transit planning software services to the RTA for a 3-year period. Remix is the only web-based transit planning software platform that provides rapid route design, import, analysis, modification of existing transit routes, demographic analysis, operating cost calculations, travel time visualizations, and Title VI analysis into a single integrated platform for transit planning. Remix will enhance results and reduce contracted service costs associated with RTA's strategic plan of conducting a comprehensive operational analysis to realign services with customer needs. By utilizing the Remix platform, RTA will also achieve the core values of stewardship by utilizing resources wisely and applying best practices with the delivery several planning and service development functions. RTA is anticipating an award based on a 3-year period of performance and one-time setup fee of $5,000 for a total dollar amount of $129,200. Based on a cost comparison done amongst other users and information cited in the action item, the cost associated with the remixed route planning software service is deemed fair and reasonable. Mr. Brandon Polachicchio provided a detailed explanation at our committee meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Brandon is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Based upon the recommendation of the Planning Committee, I move to approve a contract award to Remixed Software Incorporated for the Remixed Transit Planning Software Service for $41,400 per year for a 3-year total of $124,200 plus a one-time setup fee of $5,000 for a total award of $129,200.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we award a contract to Remix Planning Solutions for a total of $129,200 for software services and a sit-up fee. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carried. We are granting a contract to Remix Planning Software.
Mr. Polachicchio then provided a summary document of recent activities in the Customer and Business Development Department. Highlights of this month's report included information on the RTA Connect program, summer fair discounts, youth summer passport program, and the upcoming semester pass partnership with Sinclair Community College. This concludes my report, Madam President, and Mr. Polachicchio or I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
There are no questions at this time. We'll move on to the Investment Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I give my report, I'd like to go on record in acknowledging Mr. Eckler for his fabulous shirt. And I don't know how much you paid for that on eBay, but it really is quite fabulous. That's the Cruise for Cancer shirt. So. Madam Chair, the Investment Advisory Committee met on July 20 for an informative financial presentation from Raymond James and the Shearlow Investment Group. Our committee is not bringing forth action items today. However, I have informational items to share. Mr. Fink and Mr. Shearlow discussed the state of the national economy. Gross domestic product and inflation remain unchanged, much as they have over the past few years. What has changed is that unemployment has hit a 16-year low, and the job market appears to remain strong. Despite low unemployment, wages remain stagnant. The higher growth forecast, late 2016 and earlier this year, based upon momentum due to a new presidential administration, has not materialized. This continued low rate of growth, along with low inflation, creates difficulty for the Federal Reserve, or Fed, which has continued to signal an eventual rising of short-term interest rates and a reduction of the size of its balance sheet. Although the Fed funds rate has increased 3 times since December 2016, given the continued low inflation readings, it is unlikely the Fed will raise rates before December of this year. These rate increases have not translated into higher long-term rates, and as such has led to a flattening of the yield curve. Now, this is important to the investment portfolio of the GDRTA because our investments are in bonds. When short and long-term bonds offer equivalent yields, there's usually little benefit in holding the longer-term bond, and we as investors do not gain any extra compensation for the risks associated with holding longer-term securities. If the yield curve is flattening, it indicates the yield spread between long and short-term is decreasing, either because long-term interest rates are falling or short-term rates are rising, or both. A flat yield curve is typically an indication that investors are worried about the macroeconomic outlook, especially in the long term. Demographic factors, competing foreign interest rates and bond yields, as well as the low growth in inflation, are likely to keep yields on longer-dated bonds low for the foreseeable future. Mr. Fink noted that the investment portfolio currently stands at $28,324,000 in face value. It is generating approximately $371,000 per year in interest income and has duration of 2.4 years. Yield to worst and maturity of the holdings stands at 1.31% and 1.38% respectively. The reduction in income from budget stems from the fact that the portfolio has been reduced by over $5 million in the past year, so we could buy new buses. Mr. Fink suggested that staff consider repositioning some of the securities based on the forecast, boosting income and taking advantage of the flattening yield curve. Ms. Stanforth agreed and stated that she will work with Mr. Fink on repositioning a small portion of the RTA's portfolio. Interest income generated from this move will be approximately $10,000. Ms. Stanforth then gave a fuel hedging update for the month of June 2017. RTA realized fuel hedging losses totaling $33,000. This compares to June 2016 with realized losses of $76,000. Year to date, at the end of June 2017, realized fuel hedging losses totaled $149,000 compared to year-to-date June 2016 realized losses of $822,000. My own editorial comment, Madam Chair, being we made the right move in stopping the fuel hedging. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Now we have the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few items here, and we have a little show and tell for you today. As I mentioned earlier, today, semester passes went on sale at Sinclair at the bookstore. Very excited about that. We had a pretty good turnout at our press conference at 11 down at the Sinclair campus. Very excited about that. And yes, Frank, we showed up. We'll pick on you today. Now that we've got you off the overhead, we could afford some fancy software for Michelle to do her job better. I know that's what you were thinking, you know. You always said no to that sort of thing. No, he did not. Frank was always a big supporter of these things. Just as informational items, so you know, we have reopened Article 9 of our contract with the Amalgamated Transit Union, had a meeting with them in June. We're continuing to progress. We've answered some questions from their consultant. We're scheduled to meet again in late August to move that forward. At the same time, we have invited both the Amalgamated Transit Union and AFSCME to have some representation on the renewal procurement for our health plan for next year. And that, by the way, is being led by our own Mary Stanforth. We wanted to make sure we had executive level presence involved in such a critical procurement. So that's going pretty well. Also on the health front, knock on something. Year to date, the numbers have been pretty good on our plan this year. They've been running at about, my memory's a little fading, but I think it was around 84% of the budget, which is a positive sign on a self-funded plan, which is really good. Sales tax, what happened to that darn sales tax issue in the state? And it's already July and August, and you know, what happened? It has basically been punted for a little bit. Turns out the legislature, the Senate specifically, has decided they didn't have to act by the end of June, and that they can still act well into the fall on the issue that we're still concerned about, which is the fix for the MCO portion of the sales tax. So we do have a House override of the veto by the governor. We were hopeful that we would get one from the Senate. It is a complicated process, and I know there are other issues that are involved for the Senate, but my sense is it's going to be September, October before action is taken. So in the meantime, we've got to continue to be prepared for one outcome or another, and the outcome obviously we don't want is the one where we lose up to $4 million a year in revenue. So we'll be prepared either way. So one thing that we talk often about, and we talk with Channel 7 seemingly daily about, is the really high-tech video equipment that you authorized us to put on our buses. Today we wanted to give you a sampling of what the quality of this video is. So Brandon's going to show us a few very brief shots, but you're going to just, I think, get a sense of how good, you know, the technology is that we've purchased. I know the one clip that we are going to show involves the event on North Main Street a few weeks back. So be prepared for that. So Brandon, this is all one bus?
That's correct. This is all one vehicle. This is our Connect vehicles, which has 7 cameras, one exterior. This is a camera that we placed on top of the next-gen prototypes, and is something that we're considering on vehicles moving forward when we make that purchase. That allows the driver to actually see through the driver's area on a video screen that's installed in that area pole placement. This is important when going through what we call specialty work or turns, that they have a way to see their pole placement, and this gives them a great view of it from inside there through the video. The next video here, this shows you the ability of the night vision that we have on the vehicles with the infrared through the interior cameras, and this is just a sample clip. This is the forward-facing camera that looks outward, and this is actually at night to show you the quality that we're getting from the cameras in terms of being able to capture color and different things, even during the dark hours.
That, of course, Main Street event just a few weeks ago.
And we put this clip on here just to kind of give you an idea of the quality and the level of detail that we're able to get. You're able to do frame by frame comparisons with this. So as you can see, the screenshot on the left is prior to the bullet going through. The one on the right just shows milliseconds after it going through, so you can even still see where it's coming through and some of the light that came through, along with some of the dust that might have come from the glass breaking. So we're actually able to get down to the milliseconds in terms of frames and freezing those photos as well.
So we wanted you to see what that is.
Yep.
That's it. For someone who's been around long enough, I know Jim and I both have, the first camera systems I used were the little Sony Super 8s. It actually had a little film cassette in them, and you would have boxes in the buses, but you wouldn't have a camera necessarily in every box. And my first experience with them was we had the boxes and not the cameras, and it was the last week of school, and a system I worked where the last week of school could be really ugly. And they said, what are we going to do? I said, mount the boxes, and the kids won't know there's not a camera in there. And we went down to some of the high schools and watched them all gesturing for the boxes, and we had a good event. Through the years, these things have morphed into, we had VCRs on the buses where we actually had VCR cassettes, up to the digital, and now to what we have today where we have live look capability if we want to, even on a notepad, if we desire that. I can tell you that with each iteration it gets better. For us, investigations get easier, the facts are easier to determine. One thing I don't think we thought a lot about with this system that's been huge is subrogations. We get a lot of these mirror clips where typically they're gone. You don't get them. Well, now we get license plates, and we've been able to actually make use of that. And in fact, on the Main Street event, it was a classic event. I happened to be there because we had the showing of the film. I was down here at Right Stop that day. So I was up there at the scene actually before the ambulance left, and we were talking, and all the witnesses on the bus were convinced the gunfire came from a car traveling the same direction as the bus, pulling alongside the bus. Jerry Guston, who went back downstairs, showed up at the scene and with a laptop, and we played the video on the bus. And you could clearly see when that vehicle pulled up, no windows were down, and then on the other side of the street you see a vehicle which apparently was involved in a road rage incident 3 blocks away that carried on to Main Street, and that individual was firing at another SUV, and that's where the bullet came through the window. But the bottom line is these are huge investments we make, but I can tell you that they pay incredible dividends when there's an issue. I mean, you didn't get the audio here, but we have audio as well, and the new audio is much better than the old audio, and we're typically left with no questions on an incident of any kind when we get it. The other beauty is, we can tell the system we need a certain video from a certain bus, and at the end of the day, when it pulls in the garage, it downloads it. We don't have to go to the bus and pull hard drives out. Dave.
As this organization's former claims counsel, what is our retention, storage, archiving?
That's an issue we dealt with years ago. We do not archive all video. We just think it would be so onerous it would be impossible. So there are obviously multiple ways. A driver can archive. They can make the intent to archive themselves, or there can be a request there. The challenge sometimes is, and I'm going to defer to Brandon if I get this wrong, with the color video, is it 7 days now or more?
Well, it will store you get further than 7 days. Your 1080 high definition
So unless there's an archive, in other words, if somebody comes back 3 months later and says there was an event on this day, we may not be able to access that video. But anything that is archived then goes into the policy and it is retained. And I don't think anymore that we very often get requests that are so stale. Typically, we know before the video is gone. So, and I know that's a big thing with the police departments. I don't know how, if they're going to archive everything, that's going to be a massive investment just in electronic storage space to do something. And we've got 8 cameras on these buses that are constantly videotaping.
Clearly, you don't need to archive everything, but I would say that there really needs to be coordination between anytime there's an incident report of any kind from a driver or anything, automatically make sure that that video is saved for longer than the normal 7-day period, just in case.
Right. Well, once we archive, it's kept typically, basically permanently, as long as the file is associated. The 7 days is just in my head. It's why I always tell people, like when they come to these meetings and lodge complaints, it's like, we need the complaint right away. And if you wait 30 days, we may not be able to capture, what happened on the vehicle. But it is very telling. I know it's been very helpful for the police in their investigations. Certainly helpful for our insurance company when they're dealing with some of these issues. Even if it is a situation where we're liable, you can determine, to what degree there really is a problem there. So it's just, we wanted you to see that. I mean, we obviously see a lot of video here, but great investment that we've made there. Speaking of video, my last item, I know we all know we have an empty seat over there at the senior staff table. Our good friend is having a tough week. So Brandon's folks have been going around this week shooting videos, and we encourage board members, if you have time after the meeting, to just say hey to our dear friend Gene, wish him the best. This will help him in his recovery, which is going to be a long-term event. So I highly encourage you to take the time to say hey to our buddy Gino. Feel free to say whatever you want. It'll all be uncensored. So that's all I have to report, unless there are questions.
Okay, next under old business, I only have one item, a refresher. This was the year that the planning committee was going to review the bylaws, Sharon. And were there any changes needed?
Not to date, but I have not reached out, gotten feedback from everybody.
Okay, because at the time that we decide, even if we decide there are no changes,
right,
we need to enter it into the minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm not aware of any new business. Now we'll go to public comments, and I have 2 requests for comments. Just a reminder that only the citizen who completed and whose name appeared on the registration form may address the board, and you may only speak on your own behalf. You cannot speak on the behalf of others. At the time that I call your name, you're to come forward, give your name, your address, the topic that you wish to address. Then at that time, the stoplight will start. When it goes down to yellow, you have 30 seconds left, and when it goes to red, we ask you to please stop and be seated. Thank you.
And my name is Ruby Thompson, and I live at 729 West Grand Avenue, apartment 142 in Dayton. And the topic is about transportation services. I'm still getting rumors from more than one source that RTA is planning on another strike. So I wanted to come to find out from the board if this is a true fact in the future that another strike is going to take place.
Did you want to address that, Mark?
I'd be happy to. Certainly would hope not. Obviously, we don't have the power to make a decision on whether or not the employees go on strike. Only the employees and their union can do that. I certainly would not think there's anything that we had to discuss. We have a contract that expires with AFSCME in December. We've never had an issue with renewing our contracts with them. The issue with ATU is simply related to health insurance. I would certainly hope that that's not something they would be willing to risk so much for, but no, I'm not hearing any rumblings. And
another thing, is the Project Mobility customers still allowed to show their passes to get on the big buses at this time?
yes.
Okay, until further notice, and they'll send us the notice through the mail if anything changes with that.
We have no plans to change that.
Okay, then. Well, I was just concerned because my health condition has changed, and right now I'm on medical leave at McDonald's. And have been using the bus and plan to use the Project Mobility if I can full time. My doctor filled out a form, and I turned it in about 2.5 weeks ago. I haven't heard back, but my understanding is that they're working on it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The next request for comment I have from Florence O'Brien.
I think
She left?
I think she left.
Okay. Well, that,
I did speak to her before the meeting.
oh, okay, thank you. The next item are board member comments or announcements. Let's start down at this end.
My only comments are to again extend my own personal congratulations and best wishes to Allison and to Jim. These are two people who have the hearts of a servant, and you know, we just heard from Ruby Thompson, who we give our own personal best wishes on a swift recovery. She's the person you were talking about, Jim. She's the customer. She's the person at the bus stop who uses the services we provide that we're looking out for. So best wishes to you both, and many happy returns.
I just want to thank both Allison and Jeff over there for their service, and I think it's admirable that both of you have had some adversities that others don't always experience, and you've been able to overcome those things. So you should both be applauded for that. You have my utmost respect, and you'll be missed. So we'll probably have somebody call on you guys to do some other stuff for free.
I think it was beautifully expressed by John and Dave, so not to take too much time, I'll just say ditto to what they said, because it was summarized so beautifully. And I wish both of you all the best in your retirement, and whatever else you take on, may you continue to experience great success.
Well, I did write a 30-minute speech that I wanted to give on, but in light of the fact that the comments were so well stated, and that you have those things, I too want to just thank you for your service and wish you all the best for the future. Oh, and one other thing. This is the last time I want to see these. Thank you.
I wish to also thank Allison and Jim for their services, and I do expect to see you when we initiate our retirement picnics, because we're having so many retirees that we don't want to lose touch with. We may have to have a retirement picnic, or have a table set aside at the company picnic for retirees.
We even have a golf cart. All old people like Jeff around.
And
by the way,
I'm sure some of them will have to.
This coming Sunday this coming Sunday is the picnic.
Okay, so you can video yourselves in from your bass boats. Okay.
I just reiterate, want to thank you, wish you the best. You know you're in retirement when you can't figure out what day of the week it is. And every day is Friday. So best of luck to you and thank you.
I'd just like to say the same. 1 month we're going to have to start down here, so we don't have to just ditto it. But,
Thanks, Tom.
but congratulations to both of you and best wishes.
I'd just like to say congratulations, and I'm jealous. That's all I have to say.
Is there a need for an executive session today?
I hope not.
Okay. Then we will move right on to item 14, there being no further business to come before the board. Everybody ready?
Oh, God.
Meeting is adjourned, and we'll join you on the next level for the reception.